Hiya, it's Linton Herbert again. Name of our series is Most Dreaded Terror. Just probably a pretty forbidding title. I should have had made it something like Cuddles, Teddy Bears, and Bunny Rabbits, but I'm about to tell you some things that are pretty dreadful anyway, so it's, at least for today, it's appropriate. So there's a lethal virus circulating. You knew that. Most victims apparently recover. Some succumb. Virus was first reported in Wuhan, China. Name of the virus has been announced by the World Health Organization, and it's something like SARS-2 COVID-19. I don't find that, don't hold me to that. I find that a difficult name to remember. And for something of this kind of threat, we could afford to waste a few letters and give it a unique and memorable name. It's one of countless viruses that are categorized in the coronavirus family. But in the absence of a reasonable name from the World Health Organization, mostly what I see people do is calling it the coronavirus. Well, it's a coronavirus. For a while it was the new coronavirus, but that's been dropped, and now that's mostly, they say, coronavirus. Now the disease is called COVID-19. Usually what you do is you name the virus, or you name the disease after the place it first struck, and then you name the agent that causes it after the disease. For instance, Ebola, that's the name of a river near which the disease Ebola first appeared, and they call the cause the Ebola virus. That's kind of standard. And there are exceptions. Spanish flu did not strike Spain first. Apparently it hit the United States. But Spain was the only country that leveled with us and told us what was going on. Everybody else, the governments all panicked and stifled news about it, so people could not make rational decisions because they did not know the most available facts. Named Spain. Spain was the only country that was honest about it. Traditional pattern would be the Wuhan virus and the Wuhan disease, and maybe I should go that way. But the World Health Organization, the WHO, decided that their name wouldn't produce prejudice against this person or that because of the name. Now then, there didn't seem to be any problem when they named Ebola, did there? And yet, no one was worried about causing prejudice against Africans, but against Chinese, apparently it was worth risking people's lives or making it difficult to work with the ideas about this. And the World Health Organization also has not seen fit to discourage travel, even though travel is essentially the only way the virus can get any long distance. You begin to wonder whose side who is on. Are they favoring the virus, or are they favoring us? What's worse, COVID, which stands for coronavirus disease, could just as easily have been Corvid. The R is there. And a corvid this is a piece of plastic. It's what's left of a piece of plastic. It's supposed to look like a crow or a raven. Those are corvid birds. If you want an icon for doom and gloom, your good old friendly raven, you know, he looks the part. Hello. Say hello to, get it back in the light. There we go. Say hello to history, Raven. In my opinion, they have not covered themselves with glory to this point. Dr. John Campbell says they've lost all credibility. And yeah, that's basically what I think too. They haven't said stop traveling. They haven't called it a pandemic. At least at one point they were announcing, well, they were just not going to have a category of pandemic. Well, that's one way to prevent pandemics, in my humble. Okay, there's been a lot of talk on YouTube. I spend far too much time looking at this on YouTube. I call a session a Wuhan wallow. And I mean that to reflect on myself, not on the city. Stories appear, they change daily, almost hourly. All I know right now is a snapshot, so don't take it as gospel. My favorite channels are Dr. John Campbell of Carlisle, England, who tends toward the gloomy side. Here's today's video. The other site I go to regularly is called Peak Prosperity, and that's their these are just videos from them. It doesn't take you to a home page, but you can go to the video and find your way to what you need. But I find both of these to be excellent presentations. Well, that's not to mean they are the only good ones. Some presentations that seem rather awkward still have valuable observations. So anyway, you had depressed and manic. I mean, we have gloomy and anxious. Me, oh, I'm insufferably cheerful. But that's not because of any evidence. It's just that's the way I am. I'm cheerful no matter what. Sorry, it's my destiny. Okay, different sources have different purposes. The authorities try to be reassuring. Everyone says it's because they don't want people to panic. Ooh, panic would be bad. You know what? Governments panic all the time. Did I mention everybody but Spain panicking when the Spanish flu struck? Every government. People don't panic. The first person to describe the disease, one Dr. Lee, he was practicing in Wuhan. He got on Facebook, told his colleagues he was dealing with an unfamiliar kind of pneumonia. So the police arrested him, demanded he sign a promise not to spread false rumors. Basically, they were threatening to accuse him of treason. A clinical puzzle, and the government reacted like that. Why would they care? How would they even know? They monitored every doctor's mail and round up anyone who shared a puzzle with his friends, what later turned out. The first cases had turned up very near a lab that was working with their most dangerous pathogens. On the face of it, they'd been making germs for germ warfare and were afraid something had escaped. That's panic. They panicked and they tipped their hand by being panicked. If they just kept their mouths shut, let him do his job, let the medical community do his job, we might be better off, and we certainly would have less reason to say something funny about the fact that this turned up right next to their lab. Um, Unfortunately, the heroic Dr. Lee, the noble Dr. Lee, died of the same disease he discovered. Yeah. There are those who think they can profit off this, those who use it as a springboard for attacking China. People use it as a springboard for attacking the USA. And then there's I'm not interested in pushing anything that not want to turn this tragedy into an opportunity. I do have my unique worldview, and I will share that with you. But I'm not doing this to push my own view. I'm just sharing it as a different perspective. First, some apparently irrelevant facts. In recent years, the USS Nimitz Carrier Group, an aircraft carrier group. It's hard to say that without choking on it. It's just an enormous number of men and a lot of very fine equipment, very well trained, dedicated men, and an incredible military striking force, and it just about bobs around in the water. Anyway, Nimitz Carrier Group saw what you could call flying saucers, fighter jets, went to investigate it. They did find some lighted object. The story is a little complex. I'm sure you can just look up Nimitz Carrier flying, unidentified flying objects. UFO, again, was apparently an invention to confuse us. Flying saucers worked perfectly well. They even had a thing go underwater and get picked up on sonar. So yeah, they're real, and if they're on sonar, they, or at least some of them, are objects. It's not just holographic projections. It's not just, theater. No, they're really something out there flying around. You would really have to be a conspiracy buff to doubt the word of those pilots, every one of which you trust your life to, and their officers, and in the commander of a carrier. He has risen far through the ranks on the basis of merit. He's going to give it to you straight. He's going to know what he's talking about. So you can say, well, maybe everybody aboard the Nimitz Carrier Group, there was more than one ship involved, maybe they all had a kind of community madness, and then a few years later the USS Roosevelt Carrier Group also ran into flying saucers. So yeah, for my money they're real, and you have to be a real persuaded person to dismiss all that. And obviously the result of intelligent design by a society with technology far better than their own. Whether they're occupied, I don't know. I don't care. Their method of propulsion would be a matter of speculation for another time. I can tell you what I think they might be doing, but that's a distraction now. There's one thing that's clear. One thing that's clear. They're not our friends. All those flying saucers, they are not our friends. because we're in the process of killing ourselves off by outbreeding depression, and they know it if I know it, and they haven't warned us. So they are happy to stand by and watch us die out. There's plenty of theories out there about why they didn't talk to us. And there's, for me, one answer, and that is because they want us dead. They're working on that. If you don't believe what I'm saying about outbreeding depression, go here, look at the first 32 video links. I worked this out on my own. Any illegal extraterrestrials know it. I spent 30 years trying to warn people. No luck. Why didn't they come after me? Maybe they didn't follow my work. That would mean they don't analyze the entire internet exhaustively. So their resources, they're vast, they're still finite. And toward the end of the year, I had a new idea. That involved putting a document in the hands of the government, and I posted something to the government. That was in November. In December, and there are some people who say in November the disease broke. Maybe they were afraid my warning might be effective, that my new approach might work. They took a more direct approach of getting rid of us. Up until then, they'd confined themselves to promoting large random mating societies, globalism of one form or another. Civilizations first, now more recently globalist. They don't want to go toe-to-toe with us in a war, and you can't really blame them. There's one thing we've always done well, it's killing folks. More recently, somebody has claimed the plague started in November. That doesn't leave enough time for an even a exceptionally advanced technology to perfect the virus. They had it on the shelf, ready to go for a long time. Maybe they were waiting for globalism to get a little bit more irreversible. And maybe the globalism would cause it to just present all over the world all at once. And so that's comforting thought, actually, because that means it's not all my fault. They didn't release this virus to shut us up. They were gonna release it anyway. I just forced their hand, made them do it a little early. That makes it a form of biological warfare. If you want to develop a war germ, you want to have instant effect. It's got to hit, you know, if it's more than a day or two, it's useless. Completely non-contagious. You don't want to get into your own troops. No ability for contamination of surfaces. Let that be pathogenic, because you may be running your guys right through the place where you just applied the disease, and you want them either to die or get better very quickly, because the last thing you want is to say, okay, there's a division, you hit them with your war germ, half of them collapse, the other half surrender, and then you've got a lot of sick people to nurse. You want them to bounce right back if they survive. Well, Wuhan virus isn't just bad on all these things. It's spectacularly bad. It's amazingly bad. This was not a war germ. Crafted by humans. But, of course, for their purposes, it's fine. So whatever brothers and sisters made, they took a virus from a bat or maybe a pangolin. You don't hear about pangolins very much, but they may have started it. This was to provide maybe a false lead or two. Maybe it was a bat, pangolin, whatever. Maybe they were sticking that kind of DNA or RNA into the virus to provide a false lead. They might have considered using livestock as a source. That would have involved mutilating cattle, which they are said to have done. All right, so first, they made it contagious. World's record holder on contagion, I think, is smallpox virus, but Corvid, that's getting pretty close. And they tweaked it for a long incubation period during the feeling time the victim would feel great, but already be shedding the virus. And there's broad agreement that, yeah, you can be shedding the virus before you feel sick. Then they tweaked it so not that many would fall ill. Those that did, a few would need to go to an intensive, expensive care unit. Death rate at a low 2% with best of care seems reasonable. All that makes sense for an initial clinical illness. It's not going to wipe you out losing 2% of your population, or if you don't have good medical care, it's 20%. It's losing 1 billion. And that, even if you believe the experts and not me, is what we may be looking at, because they say 80% infection rate across the world. Most of the world doesn't have intensive care units enough to take care of more than a handful of patients. And the rest of the 20% who are severe, I'm afraid we're going to lose them, including males of my age. Oh, well, then you'll be on your own, won't you? Okay, so next thing they did, they wanted to make the initial illness last a long time. So during the early phases, there'd be a lot more victims in bed than those who'd either died or recovered. And there's widespread agreement on the feeling that that's happening. So there you go. I will continue with this subject sometime in the near future. You can like it or share it or steer people this direction. If you think this virus is important, you want to maximize your lateral thinking. Okay. Oh.